Hello, and welcome back to History 1301. Today's lecture is going to cover the continued move west, and our objectives are to describe the conquest and development of the West between 1820 through 1850 by white Americans. We'll then be moving on to explain how the expansionist spirit in the West led to political conflict at home, as well as conflict with Mexico, even as it gave the U.S. its modern boundaries. So, before we get into the continued move west, I want to talk about some of the reasons why Americans were moving west during the 1820s. So for this, there's three main reasons. In the previous chapters, we've talked about, the Louisiana Purchase. We've touched a little bit on Manifest Destiny and really how Americans were convinced more than ever to continue pushing west, to continue pushing those boundaries, settling out how the nation is growing. And so those three main reasons during the 1820s and onward are mostly because they're either fleeing some kind of religious persecution or because they want to pursue greater social reform or quite basically to seek riches, right? So business opportunities, land. But by the 1840s, those reasons for moving out west had changed. And to be perfectly honest, they sometimes justified the brutal methods they took on in order to achieve expansion. So we're going to be looking at those reasons right here. So after the 1840s, the reasons why people are moving out west are different than they were prior to that time period, right? Remember, we just talked about the 1820s, how you had three main reasons: fleeing religious persecution, pursuing greater social reform, or seeking riches. But after 1840, those reasons are changing, and this is what they are. So what's going on here is, as a market revolution is really starting to pick up a lot of momentum, people really desire another route to China or a clearer route to China. Like I said, as the market revolution is picking up momentum, this is creating a lot of desire to have access to the Pacific Ocean, access to China, and more than anything, the Chinese markets and other markets outside of our borders. And so this is a topic that we'll talk about more, especially in 1302, but definitely in other chapters to come. As the United States develops, its economy grows, that sort of thing. So route to China is one of the reasons why people are moving out west after 1840. Another reason has to do with governmental interest. Now, the government here, the U.S. government, is specifically targeting land that it wanted and would be interested or would be willing to fight for it. And so we'll see this is definitely the case when it comes to Mexico. But certainly, Great Britain is not excused from this, as we'll talk about the Oregon territory in a little bit. So, governmental interest is another reason. A third reason for moving out west during the 1840s is because it was politically popular. So what this means is that the idea of expansion and moving out west was popular with voters despite the slavery question. So yes, that is something that is going to come up, the issue over slavery that's going to continue to divide the nation. But politicians that are looking to get reelected are taking notice that expansion is a popular issue that voters care about, and it becomes a part of their political platform. So expansion is politically popular with the voters. It is popular with politicians. And so it's just like this never-ending cycle. Another reason for expansion in the 1840s has a lot to do with, where we left off at the end of the previous chapter, which was a new beginning after the Panic of 1837. So the Panic of 1837 pretty much left a lot of people with nothing. And so moving out west was a way to start all over, start from scratch, if you will. And, that's another reason why they go. They've lost their homes, they've lost their livelihoods in the Panic of 1837. And so moving out west represents a fresh start, a new beginning for a lot of people. And so that's why they're going to move out there. Lastly, but certainly not least, national ambition is another reason why people are moving out west in the 1840s. So what's going on here is the United States is seeking to expand rapidly, to expand not just the size of the U.S., geographically speaking, but expand its power, expand its influence abroad. And so, more land equals more power. And American politicians and the American people really believe that manifest destiny is, they're going to use manifest destiny as a way to spend resources and seeking further expansion, to get that land to fulfill this destiny that Americans believed that they were very that Americans believed were entitled to accomplish. So, what are some of the consequences of, the continued move west? Number one, the biggest losers here, of course, is the continued decimation of Native American populations, pushing them further off of their lands, encroaching on those lands that they've been using for generations. We're going to talk about that in a little bit as well, but that's a major consequence here too, that Americans are going to have to deal with, and Native Americans are going to be very much affected by this expansion. The second biggest consequence of this continued move west is the expansion of the market revolution. So that's another thing that, we're getting further and further away from Jefferson's view or Jefferson's vision for the United States. It's becoming more industrialized. The cities are growing. More people are immigrating to the United States. It is growing at a very, very fast pace. Another major consequence for the continued move west is the opening of the American frontier. And what that means is as the United States fulfills its manifest destiny, the question is going to be, well, then where do we go now? There's nowhere to go. We've gone all the way to the Pacific. We've gone all the way north to Canada. We've got Mexico and our southern border. What now? And so that's another thing that we're going to talk about later on. And then lastly, of course, this is number one, the spread of slavery. As people continue moving out west, what are they taking with them? Their slaves. And so the continued political debate around slavery is going to get more violent. People are less willing to compromise over it. And eventually, by the time we get through with the semester, it will lead to a civil war. So for the next video, please go ahead and scroll down to the one that starts with manifest destiny. We'll be evaluating the idea, this photograph, what does it mean for Americans, and there'll be more information to come. So I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.